So I have to document my thought process to make sure that this isn't recorded in history, because I think I'm onto something that could be massive, which in our ideal Edenic paradise world, that's, kind of like Avatar, where the jungles and the are all over Earth and they're huge and massive. Well, think about the Carboniferous period. This is something that existed, that has evidence that our planet is capable of. They had massive trees that lived for very long times. All right? So I believe that's the optimal and ideal thing. And it also allowed animals to be bigger. I don't know if that's necessarily great or not. It depends on which animals we decide to have. But the thing I need to focus on here. Okay, today we have an issue where plants don't really live as long as they did. I don't know how long the longest plants lived during the Carboniferous period, but this is something I need to research. And I'm probably going to put some of this stuff in my Supernatural Hydroverse book, which I wanted to have come out in 2025, but it'll probably come out 2026. If I have to do a ton of research on this, maybe it would come out 2027. Who knows? We'll see. But, all right, so today we have an issue where many trees get rotting and fungus, and they die and fall over, especially in the jungle. You have this issue where you could die because of trees falling over randomly in the jungle. And so you have to be especially careful and tedious and meticulous on which species and how the system and the orchestration of the species that you have laid out in your living space. I'll say that. And so in our ideal world, we're having massive tree houses, and the longer they're alive, the better. And the stronger and more fortified they are, the better. And so when learning about the Carboniferous period, what kept these places so oxygen rich and healthy, apparently, is that they didn't have this fungus called rat rot fungus. And today, apparently, there's a couple or a few thousand species of this fungus. Now, it doesn't have to be all fungus, because there's a lot of other species that don't do this. But this fungus became and evolved after. And so here's one thing I need to clarify, and this is a very good gift to you, because normally I charge a lot of money for this type of information, but consuming fungus as a human is bad. You know what a fungus is? It's a decomposer. Okay? Funguses decompose your central nervous system. That's why when you take them, you see all these visual hallucinations and stuff. It's eating your freaking brain. All right? And when you eat it, it's messing with your central nervous system. It's destroying your nerves. And so that's what it does to plants. It's obvious. The electricity. It's just like, it's this decayer of electricity. And I've always had this weird feeling about fungus. There's many of them. If you eat them, you can pass away just by eating a small one. And so what's happening is this Carboniferous period may be indicating that fungus evolved as practically a predator. It's almost a predatorial species. And in my theory is that we need to get rid of predation on Earth. That's how we become an Edenic paradise. And if we end up classifying many species of fungus as predation, we need to have them change to a different diet and become a better species, or eliminate them. There's other tactics we can use with predation, and that will go out through my book. But more specifically, I need to focus on if we got, hypothetically, today, if today our jungles, see, this Carboniferous period was more like Pangea. I don't think it was Pangea at the time, but it was closer to it. Now we're all broken up into different continents all over the, much more spread out throughout the earth, and we have less jungles, especially because we're in the middle of the 7th mass extinction, because we keep destroying all the jungles and the rainforests and stuff because of cooked food and animal products. That's that's a different topic. But we have less jungles now, so there's less oxygen. And if we strategically, theoretically got rid of all this bad fungus, this fungus that destroys living plants and even animals and decaying organic matter, then we would have adult trees living longer. And that would be very good in my perspective. And over a few centuries, we could raise the oxygen levels, apparently, to 0.5% or 1% more. And so in the long term, we could end up getting larger because we'll have more oxygen in our bodies. And so would other animals, but not much. Not to the extent that the Carboniferous period was, but at least at first, if we junglified the entire earth practically, especially in biodomes, hygidomes, that's another story. The oxygen could raise even more, for sure. I would imagine a few percent, perhaps. And so, the other thing, though, is apparently by getting rid of, if we got rid of all of these rat rot fungus species, the like few thousand of them types, then we'd also be getting rid of a lot of mycelium. And a lot of roots today depend on mycelium to trade, like have a mutual benefit of trading nutrients and obtaining water and nutrients into their roots so that they can grow and for seeds to fertilize. But the thing is that there's also mycelium. There's species of mycelium that don't have the rat rot fungus in it. So if we got really specialized in learning these different species and we figured out of which mycelium species are exclusively mutual, because then there's mycelium species that are, I would say, mutually parasitic, hyphenated parasitic. And that would be unideal, not ideal, because then it's not exclusively mutualistic. And that's what we want. We want mutually symbiotic and reciprocal species over all the earth, all animals and plants. And so if we chose the mycelium that's specifically mutualistic, then the roots would thrive as well. Well, then we have this other thing about the plants and stuff stacking up on each other. And apparently a lot of these plants in the Carboniferous period were in swamps. And so the whole thing about the soil being different would be a question to explore. But the thing is if we had these in jungles, basins, and along equatorial regions, there's a lot more humidity and water. And so, but we could have a medium. We could have a medium where obviously we could use soil because soil is really good for fruits. And the Carboniferous period, I don't think really had that many types of fruits. Maybe it did, but I don't think fruits really evolved until after that much. So, and we'd also have to figure out which species of fungus work best to decompose rotting fruit. There's a whole thing to sort by, but the great news, the potential of this is that we can have plants that are much stronger, much bigger, live much longer. And that would be a massive primitive technology for us to obtain. So we need to work on this. We need to get this going.